All around the world, education systems are seeking to transform their schooling and learning to try to raise young people's achievement. And this presentation is derived from my belief that it isn't young people who are failing in schooling, it is schools that are failing young people. And that there is a model of learning and schooling which can be transformative, and there are examples around the world from which we can learn, but we don't seem systemically to be very adept at that. And there's a couple of sub-themes as well. One sub-theme is about the notion of ability, and the other sub-theme is about levels of learner engagement. Okay, that's what the conversation is about. That is Kirkstall in Leeds, where I was brought up, where I played on the streets with my friends when I was young. And technically it might not be a beautiful photograph, but metaphorically it's very apt. It kind of felt like that. But why I've gone back to that is because when I was 11 years old, my dad had a corner shop on a back-to-back estate in Kirkstall in Leeds. And when I was 11 years old, the children I played on the street with and I had a parting of the ways because I passed my 11 plus and they didn't. And there were two families on the estate that did. My parents paid for me to have private tuition, so I'll never know whether I would have passed. But the bottom line is that we didn't play together anymore because there became a social. I wore a cap and a blazer. They went off to a secondary modern school, and would, if we met them now, say that they weren't very bright or weren't very able. And one of the, as I say, one of the sub-themes is about this notion of how the schooling system helps large proportions of people to feel that they're not very able. And that it's something unique to schooling systems in the sense that, you know, we don't think like that in the real world. You know, the schools they set and they have low ability groups as if it's a defining notion about young people. If I played for my village cricket team and said, yeah, it's very mixed ability, there's a lot of low ability adults in the team, everybody would find that really peculiar. And it is really peculiar. Because in adulthood we're aware of differential ability, and we're also aware, you know, how many more people do we need to get degrees through the Open University who were failed by the schooling system to be convinced that we've got a wrong model somewhere. So that's one sort of epiphany point in my life, and there's another one which is in the mid to late 1990s. I was asked to do a project in South Africa across the Western Cape, where we were working on trying to build leadership capacity in township schools. It was a very great privilege to be doing that in post-apartheid South Africa. And that's a place called Khayelitsha, which is one of the largest informal settlements. You know, we call them squatter camps in the old days. So it's kind of one of the poorest environments in the world, and I was going to a primary school, and 3 times we lost our way in our car going along these dirt tracks. 3 times we stopped to ask the way. The children playing out in the street, 7, 8, 9 years old, should have been in school, and 3 times they directed us to this primary school in their 3rd language. So I'm in the poorest place in the world, and the children can speak 3 languages. Can every child be a successful learner? And what's it going to take for the schooling system to understand how to do that? So that's the ability piece. There's an engagement piece as well, which is about, you know, the extent to which young people are enabled to take hold of their learning and feel passionate about it. This is a Canadian study, but basically the 4 bar graphs, as they travel through the system, what you'll notice is engagement levels decline quite significantly. The 4 graphs, one's about participation, the first one, the second one's about belonging, the third one's attendance, and the fourth one is intellectual engagement. And you'll notice intellectual engagement is lowest and gets lower, but they all get lower as they go through. But what's kind of more interesting is this slide, where we're looking by socioeconomic status. And surprise, surprise, young people from more challenging backgrounds are less engaged in their learning. The schooling system has been less successful in engaging them than those in higher socioeconomic backgrounds. But what's even more profound about this slide is that 25% of young people are intellectually engaged from low socioeconomic backgrounds, and only 41% from the higher. So we'd call those the passively disengaged, which is what quite a few people in this room will have been during their schooling, their education. You did all right, but it wasn't the biggest thrill of your life, you know? So we're not doing too well. And I love this kind of logic that says kids aren't doing well enough in school, we need to lengthen the school day. You know, they're kind of really disengaged and hate it, so we need to give them more of it. There is another way. So I'm going to take you on a tour of some schools that do it differently and just talk about particular features of that. But City House School is a school in New York. Across the States, they have 1.2 million students a year dropping out of school. City House School is a transfer school. It's for kids who've dropped out of school. 700 students they have at City House School. Almost all of them graduate. It's an astonishing place. And in that survey of the dropouts in America, 65% wish they had a teacher or an adult who cared. 80% dropped out because their classes weren't interesting enough. And 90% said they wanted opportunities for real-world learning. How do we prepare students better for the real world? Why don't we make school more like the real world? More like life after school. So City House School has as its design principles, because I'm going to come to a notion that if we have some different design principles for schooling, we could actually start to make some progress. And theirs are about relocating the classroom, hence the title City as School. Restructuring the school day and school year. Who ever said that 1 hour lessons were the right unit for learning? How many of us would enjoy our learning if you had to break it into 5 1-hour units? Where did the subject-based curriculum come from, and how relevant is it in the model world? And if we redefine success, holding ourselves accountable to higher standards, not that tests aren't important, there are more important things than that, let's start measuring them, okay? So that's City House School, and those are some of its design features. But I'm going to take you through some schools that represent top left of these slides. There's a sort of design principle. High Tech High, 60%, it's 12 schools in San Diego, and in the States, elementary through to high. 60% of their curriculum is project-based learning. All of it results in an exhibition of work. What they basically say is, think of where the learning is going to live. Think of the installation, the place it's going to be vivid and visible and real world and matter. So you can get the feel of that. The whole campus is an exhibition of student work. What's interesting about High Tech High? It's fully comprehensive of San Diego. 99% of its students go on to college or university. 85% of its free school meal students get a degree. Something is happening. Why isn't it expanding? Why aren't we learning the messages from that? If I take you to Kunskapsskolan, which is a Swedish model, it means knowledge school, and they have this model of radical personalization where young people define their own route up the mountain of learning, setting their own goals, and then in that bottom left, using an individual tutor to personalize and access the curriculum they need, the time they need, the space, the ICT they're going to use, which teachers' sessions they're going to go to or not. So they take the whole thing round and give ownership to young people. It's a model of radical personalization. The hole in the wall is really interesting because it is a computer in a wall, Sugata Mitra, tried an experiment, can students self-educate? In the son's in Delhi, and basically not only could they, but the whole group self-educate, they're peer-to-peer within it. These most radical experiments are where he takes the computer into a non-English speaking remote area, asks them a really challenging question, goes back, sees if they can manage to source the answer in English. And so, question, can Tamil-speaking 12-year-old children in a South Asian village teach themselves biotechnology in English on their own? Answer, when he asked the girl, well, apart from the fact that improper replication of the DNA molecule causes genetic disease, we've not understood anything else. Astonishing visit. He was he got the TED Award for 2013, Sugata Mitra. Big picture, why they're interesting is because all their students spent 2 days a week in community-based learning and 3 days a week in school, so that community members become teachers and the schools work with community members to be great educators of young people in those 2 days. They make sense of it in school, and the young people get sort of their aspiration through the community-based work, because education is everyone's business. They've got about 50 schools now with astonishing success rates. So, if we want to redesign systems, we need some new design principles. And I'm going to suggest to you that out of that little walking tour of the world, we've got some. So, 2 of them, I think, are about what we teach and how we teach it. The curriculum and pedagogy, the personalised and integrate ones. 2 of them are around the kind of place school is, relationally and culturally, and its connections with its community. And 2 of them, there are 6, are what I think of as enabling principles. So contexts where school's an intellectually stimulating place for adults and they're designing great learning, and where technology is used to empower learners. And with that, we can either evolve or revolutionize our education systems, I hope. Thank you very much.